So in this session, I'll be telling you how you can add images to your Flutter app. So you can see this is the basic app. So this is the continuation from the previous app, which was the Dice app, which we made in Flutter. So I have removed the code which was related to the Dice app, and here I have added a body which has a center widget in it. Now for implementing an image widget or showing an image inside it, we have basic two options which are available, which Flutter provides us. The first one is that we can display an image from a URL. So the image is stored in cloud and we are using an URL to display the image in our app. The second option is by storing the image inside our application by creating a separate folder named as images, and then editing the code which is provided inside the pubspec.yaml file, and then allowing the assets or the images, and then adding the path to those images inside our Flutter app. So let's look at the first option, which is by adding the URL. So for adding an image to a URL, I'll be adding a child to this container, and then I'll be adding an image. Now after this image, what we have to add is we have to put a dot, and it will be providing us various options like from where we want our image to be displayed. The asset one is for displaying the images which are stored inside our assets folder, which we'll be creating in the later part of this video, but for now we'll be using this network. So in place of src, we have to add the link for the image which we are having. So I'll quickly Google a dog and find a URL for the image of a dog. So I'll copy the URL from the Google, and I'll be replacing the src by passing a URL string inside it. Load it and wait for this image to load and display inside the Flutter app. So sometimes there are chances that the image won't be displaying. So this can be because of the URL. So the URL does not support the image displaying. So what you can do is you can change the URL, or you can select some other image. So I'll open the image in a new tab and see if the URL supports the image to be displayed inside an application or something like that. Here you can see that it has given me an exception, that invalid image data. So I need to change the URL. And now I have edited the URL and provided some other URL to it. So I'll save it and see if it displays the image or not. So here you can see that the image has started displaying inside the app. So this is the first way. The second way is by enabling the assets inside our pubspec.yaml file. So let's see that. So firstly, I'll be going to my pubspec.yaml file, and I'll be uncommenting these. So it will be enabling the assets which are stored inside my image folder. So for now, I have to create a new folder inside my main directory. So I'll name it images, and all the images related to the project I'll be storing it inside my images folder. But one more thing which you need to take care of is that if you are storing more than one images, so what you can do is you can directly add images / so all the images which are stored inside this images folder will be enabled by default. You don't need to add the name of the images one by one. And after saving the pubspec.yaml file, it generally runs the pub-get command by itself, so that all the dependencies are fetched. But sometimes in this VS Code, the thing which happens is that it doesn't run the pub-get command in the background. So what you can do is you can load and run flutter pub command just for the safety purpose, so that you don't face any issues while running your Flutter project or while doing your things. Now the next thing which I need to do is I need to add some images inside this image folder. So I'll open or reveal this image folder inside the file explorer and copy some files from my desktop to this image folder. So I have added these files from my desktop to this image folder, and we'll be using these files for replacing the basic layout for the Dice app which we have created in the video, and we'll be adding images in place of those numbers which were displaying. So for now, let us see how we can add asset images through the help of the images which we have added. So what I'll be doing is I'll be removing this dot network part. I'll be deleting it, and in place of dot network I'll be typing dot assets. So it will be asking for a name of the image. So I'll be right clicking on the image and I'll copy the relative path. Then I'll select name here and add the image here. For Windows users, you need to take care of one thing, that the file path which is present inside our Windows generally gives a backslash, so you need to delete it and you need to change it to /. So you can see that as I have edited the image by implementing the dot asset thing, so it is displaying the image here. What if I change this 5 to 1 and save? So hot reloading will take place and then it will change the image accordingly. Now I'll be showing you like how you can convert the basic app or the app which you had made by watching our previous video, which was the dice app. So we'll be converting that app, or we'll be revamping that app by adding images to that. So let's look at it, how we can do those things. So I'll load the initial state of this project file. So you must have created an app which looks similar to this. So this is basically how our app looks. Now we'll be creating a list of all the images which we have stored. The list will be basically of type string, as it will be holding all the location in the string format for all these images. So I'll name it to image files. After that, in this list I'll add the location for all these files. So I'll copy the relative path for one location, and after that I'll just remove this backslash to /, copying it and then adding it 6 times. Now what I have to do is I have to replace this 5 with 1. Now has all the files or location for all the files. So let me add a comma after the file names. I guess now the list is complete. So now what we have to do is, in the place of this number we have to display the image. So I'll replace the text widget which we are having with an image widget. An image widget will be having an asset, so we are passing an asset image to it. So I'll add dot asset to it, and in this we need to pass the location or the relative path of the image which we want to display. So what we have to pass is, so you need to understand that whenever we are generating this value out of this _getValue function, we are getting an integer value out of it. And we know that in object oriented programming we can use a value to get a file or what we can say a number or element out of an array or from a list. So I'll be using this, but from these values we are getting a value range from 1 to 6, and here in list the first element is present at the 0th position. So what we'll be doing is we'll be accessing the file which will be this _value -1. So what I'll do is, here I'll be adding this image file name, and I'll be accessing _value -1 file from it. And this needs to be string. So what I have to do is I'll be enclosing it inside quotes. And one more thing which we have to do is we have to add $sign and then curly braces around it. So it will be considering it as a string, but inside we know that we have passed a non-constant value or a variable value. So we need this asset folder to consider this as a string, but inside it will consider as a variable thing. So now let's save this and see what it shows. So one more thing, I'll add a print statement below in this function so that you guys you folks can also see like what number is currently active. So I'll add _print value so that you can get an idea of what number was generated through this random, and what image it is displaying. So when I'll be clicking on this floating action button, yeah, so I guess I need to restart it so that the print statement can also take place. Yeah, no, so now the application has restarted and it will be converting this image back to 1, as we have passed the underscore value to 1. So it has converted the image to, oh, so we have missed one thing, like for the first file we need to pass it to 1.png, and for the second 2, 3, 4, and we need to pass the files like this. So I'll just cut it from here and pass it here. Let's hot reload it, and now we can see that it will be showing one dot, like the one side of the dice here in place of the 5. So after a hot restart, let us see what it displays. So you can see that it is displaying the one side of the dice. Now let's click on this button to see. You can see that here it is printing 3, so the random number generated was 3, and here it is displaying an image which is related to 3. Now again 3 was generated and it is displaying the same image. Now when the image was changed to 4, it is displaying 4. Similarly, when we are continuously pressing it, the images are changing accordingly on the basis of the number which is generated, and the images are being displayed from the list of this image locations or the relative path of the image location through a set which we have used inside this image. So this was how you can add images to your like old application, and you can make this application or the applications looks a little bit better. Now in the next part of the video, or in the next part of this session, I'll tell you guys how you can create your UIs. So some of you might be thinking like how Flutter developers, if they want to create some UI, what are the tools that they use? So some of the tools are free, but some of the tools are paid as well. So I'll be talking about two tools here. The first one is the Figma, and second one is Adobe XD. So Figma is a web-based tool, so I'll be showing it to you guys, but Adobe XD I don't have installed, and I don't use it generally. So I would suggest you guys to move forward with Figma. But if you have basic knowledge about like structures like circle, rectangle, lines, so you can consider Adobe XD as well. So let's see what Figma has for us. So I'll close this VS Code and then open Adobe Figma in my Chrome. So you can see here that I have opened Figma. So I'll quickly log in with my Google account. So just a sec until I log in. So you can see that it has the authentication process is completed, and it is loading all the files which I previously had or which I previously created in Figma. So let's wait for a while to see what all files are present. So you can see that here I have multiple different UIs which I have created, or which some of my friends have created, and I have coded the UI part of those particular application. So let me show you some of the UIs as well. So this is the basic UI part which Figma has provided for the users who don't have much info about the UIs which are present or how to create a UI. Let's look at one of those UIs which I have created, and I have coded it and stored it on my GitHub. So if you want a code for this UI, you can check my GitHub. So this is one of those UIs which I have worked on. So you can see that this UI has a sign in and sign up with some authentication features like sign in from Facebook or sign in from Twitter or Instagram. And these are the certain things which this app had. So these are all the things you can see. So you can create all these things using these various components which are available in Figma. So you can use these to create the UIs out of your thoughts or out of your creativity. I have also created structures for some of my projects which has helped me understand, or which has helped my faculties understand the project in a better way. So you can see that here I have added used the structure way or the structure paths to show what all things will be occurring when a particular action is taking place inside an application. So you can use Figma for that as well. So this is basically what Figma has for you and what all things you can do in Figma. Most of the features are basically similar when you are using Adobe XD, but I would suggest you to move forward with Figma. Although it has an other version as well which you get by upgrading. So, but this free version generally provides most of the features which you will be using in your day-to-day activities or which you will be using while creating your UIs. So now let's move to the last part of this session. So which is that we'll be coding two of the UIs or two of the screens so that we can start with our UI journey in Flutter. So let me show you what all screens we'll be coding in today's session. So the first UI which we'll be coding in this part of this session is this UI. So this is basically one of the first UIs which I coded all by myself. So it has two buttons for a login and sign up. The backend part we won't be implementing, but we'll be creating the front end UI only. So clicking on this, you can get your text field and then you can type some text in it, images displaying here and some alignments which are added to it, and also some navigation part is also implemented in this UI. So let's look at how we can code it. Let me switch back to VS Code. Now I'll close this project and create a new project, and I'll name it Flutter First UI. Yeah, I have to select the folder first. Inside Flutter projects, select this folder, name this to Flutter First UI. Enable that VS Code window here, resizing it. So it is taking some time for the project to create, so let's wait. So the project is created. Now let's run this project by clicking the run button. So it is asking me to choose a device. So I have my emulator running, so I'll quickly choose it. Until this app is running in the background, we can start with the UI part. So the first thing which I'll be doing is I'll be removing the pre-coded part which is for this function and all the elements which are using this function and the variable as well. So I have removed the hard-coded part which was available to us when we are creating our first Flutter project. Now in this scaffold, I'll be adding a background color so that the background of the our app could match the background of the UI which we are trying to create. Add color.amber as the color which was there in the UI was amber. And next I'll be adding a title to it. So there are two ways to add a title. You can either pass it from here, which is my app, or you can directly specify the title inside this. So for now I'll be using this, which is the pre-coded part. So I'll name it to login. Now let's start by creating the body for our app or for the UI. The first thing which I'll be adding here is padding. So what padding do is padding will be providing some space to the widget or the child which it is having, so that it looks spacious to us and it looks like different from rest other components which are present inside our UI. So I'll be adding edge insets. So if you are having or you don't remember or you don't want to remember all the things, what you can do is you can type half of the element and then you can press Control space and it will be displaying rest half of the element what you are looking for, and then you can add all the elements, all the sides. Now I'll be adding a child to it, and as a child I'll be using a list view. I am using a list view here because I have various different elements to be displayed inside this. You can either go for list view or you can either choose column. So the choice is yours. I'll add some childrens to this list view, and inside the children, the first widget or the first children which I'll be adding is a container. So inside a container, I'll be adding the alignment or setting the alignment to be center. this I'll add a child which will be a circle avatar. You can either use a container and then provide a shape to it as a circle, or the border radius so that the container converts into a circle, or you can directly use a circle avatar so that the image which you are passing inside it appears as a circle. And I'll be passing a radius for this circle avatar which will be 90. Next thing which I need to pass inside this is a background color or transparent. And one more thing which I need to pass is the background image. So this is the image of the dog which was being displayed. So I want this to be network image. So I can either use network image here, or I can use image.network. So both things will work. I'll pass the link for the image which I have used, my previous project, or from the UI which you have just seen. Let's see why it is showing an exception or an error. So it is saying that the element type network image. We can hover over this background image to see what all things it supports. So you can see it support an image provider which should be an object. So that's why it was not supporting image. So we have replaced it. The app is running in the background, and we'll see all the changes or all the things which we have implemented later on. Let's now focus on other parts of the UI. So now as we have added the circle avatar to it, we'll move towards a second element or the second widget inside this list view. So it will be another container, and this container will also be having its alignment set to center. Next, I'll add some padding to this container so that it looks spacious. Padding only from top. The amount of padding which I want it to have. Add a text to it. The child will be text. Login. Add some styles to the text. Text color should be set to blue. The font size should be set to 40. The font weight should be set to font weight.500. And the font style should be set to italics so that it appears in a better way. Let's save and hot reload it to see what all things it is showing. So you can see that it is showing a login with the circle avatar of a dog. Now let's see how we can add the buttons which said username, or how we can add the fields which were asking for a username and password. So what we'll be doing is we'll be adding another container inside the list view widget tree. So this container will also have the alignment set to center. Next, we'll be providing some padding to it, and we'll be passing only with the values of top as 50, right as 10, left as 10, and bottom as 50. Now we have to add a child to it, which will be a text field. And for the text field, we can set read only to false, as we want to interact with the text field as well. I guess by default it is set to false, but it is always better to specify things. Decoration part, pass an input decoration to it. Decoration will be taking border and it will be providing some outline border to it. Providing some label text. So this will be the text field. So it will be showing username and the helper text will be showing like what the user need to do inside this text field. So helper text will be your username. We'll also add an icon which will be added in the leading part of this text field. So I'll add an icon of account circle. I'll save it so that it appears in a formatted way along with the hot reloading which takes place. So it is showing me an error inside this outline input border in this child. So I'll fix this, and outline border needs to be outline input border. I guess now it should be correct. Yeah. Let's wait for the hot reload to finish. So you can see that here it is displaying us a text field, and when we are clicking on the text field it is raising the UI to the top so that the user does not see an overflow message, and it is displaying a keyboard, and whatever we are typing inside this keyboard appears inside this text field. So we need to add a similar text field like this for the password input also. So what I'll be doing is, rather than coding the same thing again, I'll be copying this and pasting it and editing some part of it. Changing the icon to lock. So after a hot reload, is displaying a password field here. So you must be thinking why this much gap is here. So it is because of the top padding which is set to 50. So that is, and the bottom padding also which is 50. So there is a total of 100 padding spacing between it. So if we want the padding from top for the password and set it to 10, so it will reduce the padding for this. Now what we have to add is, we have to add a button also so that it looks genuine like a login screen. So we'll be adding a submit button here. So let us code for the submit button. So this submit button needs to be added inside this container. But before adding a submit button, I want that some space should be provided between this password field and the submit button. So I'll be adding a sized box here. Box will basically be providing some space from the height or width, whatever we want, and we have to pass the value for the space we want, the amount of space which we want. So I'll add 20 here, and now I'll start coding the raise button. So I have covered what all things a raise button can take inside in the session 2, so you can check the session 2 as well. X is on pressed. I want the shape of this raise button to be circular, so I'll pass a round rectangle border. I'll pass the border radius. Border radius should be circular. It should be 18. Next I'll pass a side to add some what we can say border to it, and I'll pass the color inside it. Color will be set to black. That some formatting takes place. So it should be rounded rectangle border in place of round rectangle border. Yeah, so now it looks fine. Now we have to add some text color to this raise button. So I'll add it here. Color should be equal to white. And next we'll be adding a child to it. So I'll add this inside this raise button. I'll start coding for the child. So the child will be basically a container inside a raise button. So it's up to you what you want to pass. So for now I'm taking a container. It will be having an alignment as center and some box decoration. Adding some decoration to it. First thing which the box decoration will be taking is the border radius, and it will be circular with the value of 18. Now I'll be adding gradient color to it so that it looks different from the UI and it stands out. And I'll be adding linear gradient. So there are two gradient which you can add. The first one is the linear gradient and the second one is the radial gradient. So these are the two which you generally use. I don't know if there are others as well. So for whenever you are implementing a gradient, you need to pass a list of colors. So I'll add a color blue, opacity of 0.4. It should be S colors. Next I'll pass blue with opacity of 0.5. It makes this code appears a bit formatted. Let's see where it is showing an error. So this is a typo. Let's see after a hot reload how it appears. Now let us see what we can do. So as we have set the color to white, we haven't added the text for now. So let's add a text as of now. Firstly, I'll add some padding so that the button looks a bit bigger. And I'll be providing a padding of 10 from all the sides. The child as a text widget which will be saying submit. The text style will be having a font size of 20. Reload it. So you can see that it has started displaying this button with a bit of a color. So I guess this is because we haven't passed the this color of this raised button to transparent. So let me change it to transparent once. Change the color of this text to be transparent. Let it be. I guess the white looks fine as well. Let's save it. So this is basically a raise button which you can use whenever you are creating a Flutter UI. And this is a password field. So similarly, you can also create your sign up page for this. So as I mentioned in the kickoff call that you will be having some assignments which all the assignments you will be submitting on the last day on or when the submission forms will be opening in the last week. So the assignment for this particular project or this particular UI is that you have to create a new screen with the sign up screen or sign up option. You have to use these two fields, and along with this you have to add another field which will be confirm password field, and you have to add a button to it. If you want, you can show your creativity and you can do anything more which you want, and you want to add things to make this app look a bit better, so you can add those as well. So this is the first UI which we have coded for this session. Now let's move to the second UI which we'll be working on this session. So I'll close this UI for now. So this is the second UI which we'll be coding inside this session. So this is basically a UI which one of the apps which I created had. So this has a list view or like scrolling view, so that you can view all the different items available. So let's see how we can create this UI inside Flutter. So I am using the app or the UI which I just created. So I'll be deleting all the elements which I had for this UI and start from scratch. You guys have to always, whenever you are creating a new project or new UI, you have to always start from a new project. I'm doing this to save some time and some resources as well. I'm changing the background color as well. So this is where we started for the first UI. Now the first thing which I need to do is I need to get a list of all the images which were used inside this UI. So you can find the list attached in the link of the project. So the link to all the projects which I am creating in this session, you can find those attached inside the description. So you can take reference from those projects for the assignment, but remember, don't copy the code directly. If you are trying to implement something similar which is already been implemented, so try to add something creative to it so that it does not look like you have directly copied without doing something. Now let's start with this UI. The first thing which we have in this UI is that we had an app bar which has various different things implemented. So let's see how we can implement those. So firstly, in app bar I'll be adding a background color set to transparent. The next thing which I'll be adding inside this background is a title which will be saying home, and after this I'll be providing it with some elevation of 0 and add an icon for a menu. Be displaying with the help of this leading. This menu won't be doing anything, it is just for the display so that our app looks a bit nicer. And for actions I can add a padding, and inside it I'll be adding some text so that you can see, like you can basically get an idea of a cart, something like a cart which we have in Amazon app or a Flipkart app. So I'll add a padding to it. And add a child to it. One error which is showing is that it is missing. Yeah, so now it looks fine. Now let's add a child to it. So the child will be a container with the height and width set to 30. So it is up to you whatever height and width you want to pass, but make sure that it is not overflowing. The decoration should be set. Border radius set to circular with the value 10. add some commas and save it so that some formatting takes place. I guess it is not formatting as there are some errors. For body, as of now, I'm adding a container so that this error goes away. I'll be changing it a bit later. Now let us save it. See how the screen looks. So you can see here, this is how the screen looks with this container with the height and width of 30 on the top of the screen. Now let's move forward with the UI part. Now what I'll be adding inside it is I'll be providing a child which will be having a text saying 0 so that it gives you a feel of what you can say a cart which I mentioned. So I'll add a child to it. Is displaying 0 on the top, so it needs to be centered. So if you want to add some quick widget, so what you can do is you can click on the particular widget above which you want to add a new widget, and you can click on this bulb icon, so it will provide you some of the options which are pre-coded for you, and you can directly implement them clicking this bulb icon. I guess now it will be appearing center. Implement the body part. So for the body part, the first thing which I'll be adding is a safe area. So what safe area is, it will be removing the notification part of the screen from the screen. So what it will be considering as a safe area is all the screen part except the notification part. So I'll add a safe area to it. Inside the safe area, I'll be having a child as a container. Column will be having multiple child inside it. Inside this list of widgets. The first item which will be having is a container, so it will be having a width of infinity, so it will be taking all the width which is available inside the screen. At double dot infinity. Also use media query dot of context dot size, so it will also provide you the similar result. The height will be set to 250, so I am hard coding the height here, and I'll be passing some decoration to it. So the decoration will be set to box decoration, and I'll be passing some border radius inside it with the circular value of 20. Let's add an image to it, but let's wait for it to finish and then we can add an image. And inside this, after this border radius, we need to add the image. Image will be of the type network image, like the one we added inside the login UI or our first UI. Passing the URL for the image, so I'll quickly copy the URL for the image. The argument of network image cannot be sent inside a decoration image. Yeah, so the first thing which I need to do is I need to remove this network image, and in place of it I need to add a decoration image, and inside it we can add this network image. Decoration image, inside it I'll be having an image, and then I can pass this. After this, what we can do is we can pass a fit to it, so that there are different fit options which are available, so that the image can scale accordingly. So I'll be passing an box fit dot cover, so that the image can scale accordingly and it can cover the space which is provided to it. Let's see how it looks. It is still displaying the whites and defined name box fit. So yeah, so there is an error in this box fit name, but I guess it is correct. So let me ये काट देना part. So you can see various different options which are available inside box fit. Covering the space which is available inside this box, so you can see that it has taken this circular the borders as well. So the borders are set to circular. Now let's add a child inside this container. It will be another container and will have some decoration to it. Having a linear gradient. So I need to pass gradient. Inside the linear gradient, I will be passing the begin position. So the gradient path will begin from this position. Black with opacity of 4 and black with opacity of 0.2. File formats. Yeah, so the file has formatted. Now inside this container we have to add a child for this, so I'll be using a column for this, and I'll quickly add a child as a column. We'll be passing the main axis alignment to the end, so all the element which we are adding inside this container in this column will be starting from the end position. So if there is only one element available, so it will be going directly to the end position. Add some children to it. The first children it will be showing is best computer. Font weight. After this, I'll add a size box. Add a container again. And with some decoration as well. One more thing important thing is that when you are passing a color inside a box decoration, or when you are using a box decoration inside a container, so you cannot pass the color explicitly. So if you are passing color explicitly inside this, you have an option to pass the color directly inside the container. But if you are using a decoration, so avoid using color outside, because it will be providing you with an error. And also I'll add a border radius. I'll add a child for this container, but first let's save and format the file. So the formatter is running on the top. Yeah, so the file is formatted as of now. Now let's add a child for this container, which will be having a center, and the center will be containing a text which says buy now. Add some styles to this text. Side by side, you can view on the app screen as well what all things are getting ready inside the app. So you can have a look at them as well. So I'll add some commas and reformat it. Yeah, so now I have added the child as a text. Now I'll add some margin inside this container. Margin will basically be providing margin as its name suggests. I want to pass the margin from horizontal of the value 40. Now let's move forward, and I'll add another size box so that there is some space from the bottom as well. Now let's move at the final part, which was the list of items which were displaying and scrolling. So for that I'll be using a grid view, and that grid view will be enclosed inside a expanded. So what an expanded do is it provides the app with all the available space which is left in the part which we are using the expanded. So let me quickly see or implement this expanded part as well. Add a size box to provide some space from the top with the height of 10, and now I'll add the expanded here, and in this as a child I'll be having a grid view. So grid view basically creates a grid of all the elements which we are passing inside it, and it cross axis count will be set to 2. So the cross axis count name, it will be taking some padding, so I'll pass the padding for 5 from all sides. Which will be the spacing around the cross axis, so it will be set to 10. Main axis spacing will be also set to 10. This I'll be passing the children's for the, so all the children's which are available inside this top list of images, so we'll be having these as our children. So I'll pass underscore list item. It will be mapping all the items which are available inside a list in the form of a cards, and these cards will be having images inside it which are coming from the URL of the items present inside the list. So after adding a map, I'll pass an item to it. So the item will be basically the item from the list, and using an arrow functions which you must have learned inside the 30 days of web development bootcamp, I'll be displaying a card out of it. The card will be having a color of colors.transparent. I have to add an elevation to it. Add dot to list, so it will be displaying the item in the form of a list. After the elevation is added, we have to pass a child, the center, and that center will be having a container. Inside that container we can pass the child or the decoration according to us. So I'll add the decoration first. So I guess because of this child it is not formatting it, so for as of now let me pass a container to it. Yeah, so it has formatted this. Now I have passed the border radius to be circular. I'll add image inside this box decoration. So firstly we'll be having an image, decoration image. Inside this we'll be having a fit to be box fit dot cover, and image as network image, and it will be having the item which we have passed above inside the arrow function. So let me add a comma here. Yeah, so it is the item, or it is the image which will be displayed inside this decoration image. And next thing which we have to pass is the child for this. So let me add a child. As I have added a container here, I'll be removing it, and in place of it I'll be passing a transform.translate. So it will be helping us to add one more thing, which is the bookmark icon which was there inside this particular widget. So I'll add a transform here with dot translate, and I'll be passing the offset. So offset is basically the position where we want to display. It takes two values, which is one from x and one from y. So the distance from x and distance from y. So let me show you what values I passed to it. Passed 55 and minus 50. So basically we'll be having, for example, you can consider this cross as 0, 0. So or this VS Code icon as 00, so it will be seeing for X we need to move the 55 pixels and for Y we need to move minus 50 pixels. So it will be taking values like this. And now we'll be adding a child for this transform.translate, and this child will be basically a container. This container will be having some margin from horizontal and vertical direction. Add as insets symmetric margin. Now let's add some decoration to it. Decoration will be having the border radius as 10 with circular and color set to white. Colors dot white. Now I'll add a child for this, but first let me be an icon, and the icon will be of the type bookmark border. And it will be of size 15. Added this icon on the wrong place, so first see by saving if it is correct or not. Yeah, so it is. I'll select it, cut it from here, paste it inside this container. The size should be having SS small. So let's save it and see what appears here. So you can see that here it is displaying the images from the list view, and the images are being loaded in the background. So this is how it appears. One more thing, that inside this app bar it is still showing this white color. So let me edit it and set this to black so that the text that the things which are present inside the app bar can also be visible. Sometimes the VS Code does not hot reloads this automatically when we click on the save button, so you need to change it by yourself. It has changed the color of this, so I guess I have to change the color of this. I'll set it is having this icon, this title, and this card which we had tried to implement. So this is how our final UI looks. So your task for this UI is that you have to try and implement something new, or make some changes to this basic UI so that it looks a bit more attractive. So yeah, this was for this session, and today we just a quick recap for this session. We have tried implementing images from assets and from network. Next, we had a look at what are the things which we can use to create a UI if a Flutter developer wants to work on some UIs. So he can use that to create his own UIs. And next, we had a look at the app, and we tried to revamp the basic Dice app by adding some images to it. And after that, we have created two UIs all from scratch by coding it, or implementing our creativity to it. And there are two assignments for the day. The first one is to add some creativity to the login UI which we created, and the second assignment is to add the creativity to this UI which we have created. So I guess everything is clear for today's session. So if you have any doubts, then you can ask them in the comments below.